What's up, travelers? Prinston coming to you from the Cineverse. It's 2015, well, the end of 2015, beginning of 2016. And what I want to talk about in this video is the three major lessons that I learned from 2015 in entrepreneurship. Now, there's been a bunch of lessons that I've learned. There's been a bunch of ups, downs, successes, and failures. But I want to talk about the three major lessons that I learned when it comes to entrepreneurship. So let's get right into it. So 2015 was an excellent year for me. I probably had the most growth that I've ever seen in my life. Literally, I feel like in 2015, I probably had more growth than all the other years combined. And one thing that's contributed to that is the three lessons that I learned. These three lessons that I learned this year really changed the perspective and the way that I look at the world in general. These are hard-fought lessons that I had to learn, and they really are one of the reasons I attribute to creating the momentum that I've created so far. Now, of course, going into 2016, there'll be a lot more momentum that I create. There'll be a lot more on the journey. There'll be a lot more ups and downs. But I think these lessons are the things that I really hold true to and hold dear to my heart. And I've learned them really. I've got those emotional anchors to them. And I've talked about how you need to go through pain in the past in order to build that emotional anchor. So the first lesson I've learned, the first major lesson, and for me, probably this is the biggest lesson that really changed my perspective on how I move forward in dealing with a lot of people, and that is the loss of ego. One of my favorite books I read this year was The Hero of 1,000 Faces. It's by Joseph Campbell. It's an excellent book. It talks about the hero's journey, and I might talk about this sometime in another video, but basically the hero's journey, one of the things they talked about is reaching the apotheosis, the enlightenment, if you will. And to reach that, in order to do that, you have to annihilate your ego or let go of the old person you used to be. And a lot of people, we don't want to let go of our ego. Our ego is something that's so dear to us that we feel like it's almost a part of us. And if we let it go, it's almost like we're dying. And I found that one of the biggest things that I had to learn this year was to not have an ego about things. Say, for example, how people act in business, the way people interact with you. You have this perception of who you are. And I found that my perception of who I was stopped me from doing a lot of stuff in the past, because I was like, I'm not a person who does that, or people can't talk that way, or I don't like to be around this type of stuff, or if a person is not a certain type of, isn't at a certain level of business, then I can't do business with them. They have to be a certain way, they have to think like me, they have to act like me. And all these things were manifestations of my ego, and not allowing things to come to me as they have to come to me. And so, regardless of what you try to do, your ego will be hit, it'll be tested. And I think it's at this moment you can decide whether you're gonna continue or you're gonna just quit. And I think that's one of the things, one of the major barriers that I hit this year was just coming up against my ego and all the things that I thought, all the things I believed that were me getting torn away. I mean, the loss of friendships, the loss of people that were close to me, the loss of just all the thoughts that I thought were mine, and really getting down to the core of what do I believe? What's important to me? What is essentially me? And that's where the ego comes in, because you start off thinking all these things are me. And when I talk to people all the time, they always say, you know, I have these thoughts and they have their own beliefs, but they've never taken time to really develop their own thoughts or develop their own beliefs. And I think this is the biggest place the ego comes in. And definitely for me, myself, ego was a big factor. It was hindering me in business ridiculously. I can't even explain the amount of bullshit that I put myself through trying to hold on to an ego that really didn't exist. And what I found was when I let it go, when I'm not judging myself, when I can come out here and shoot videos, and even if people are walking around, the only reason I would get embarrassed or the reason I would feel like uncomfortable doing it is because I was holding on to some ego, some illusion that I was this person, and that in order to get to where I need to be some other person. And just really not building myself, understanding that the ego is not about letting go of the ego. Doesn't mean that you're somehow letting go of who you are. The underlying principles, the underlying things that I love, they're still the same. Nothing has changed, but rather what's happening is that you're becoming the best version of yourself. And what I mean by that is you're trimming away all the layers of bullshit, and you're only left with the layers that are the best parts of yourself, the things people love you for. And I found that as I let go of the ego, I just had more gratitude for life, just more gratitude for everything. It's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned. It's probably one of the biggest changes I had to learn. And I always try to see where I'm letting that ego creep back in and kind of let go of it and just let things be, let things flow. It's one of the reasons I don't delete any of my videos. off YouTube because I know I'll get better. And I like to kind of look back and to see what my mindset was going through. And I can even look at the videos and say, oh, I know what I was thinking at that time. And it's crazy to me to see how much just letting go of the ego really can change your perception of the world. So the second thing that I learned this year, and I'm really grateful that I learned this because this was what I felt like was one of the key essential things that's missing in a lot of people's business. It was definitely missing in my business at first, and that's system. How to implement systems in your business. So what are systems? And the best way I've seen to explain is systems are like organisms. So when you look at a big company like an Apple or Google or something like that, it looks so complex on the outside looking in that it seems like it would be impossible to build something similar. But what I found out about system is that systems or big businesses are just a bunch of systems working together to be a complex organism. So each system is like a procedure. A procedure as simple as, what do you do when you open up the shop? What are the step-by-step processes to open up a shop? Something like you come in, you open the door, or you unlock, you turn off the alarm. Just the step-by-step what you would do to open the door. And you put a bunch of those together to create a full set of policies, procedures, or a full working system. And a business is like an organism. You got all these systems working independently. So for example, with a human body, you have like the nervous system, the skeletal system, the muscular system. You have all these different systems. But when you put those systems together, what do you get? You get a human being, right? Same thing with a business. If you put all these systems together, you start slowly building one system at a time, and then you put that system in place. Then you put another system in place, and another system in place, and another system in place. Eventually what you'll find is that you've built a very complex business based on a lot of fundamental systems. So even something as complex as a Google or an Apple or Microsoft or any of these huge companies, they're just a series of systems that are put together. And what's crazy about this, when you look at this in your own business, when I start implementing systems, you could see how it'll start building your business up. And another good thing, another value that I found for systems is that they really allow you to automate your business. Now, a lot of these tasks that you do every day, you can automate those, you can delegate them, but how? Because a person needs to know exactly what to do, step-by-step process. I think we kind of have this knowledge in our head, and when we do tasks, we kind of forget steps because we're so used to doing them. So we have such a working knowledge of it that we kind of don't think about the step-by-step process and we leave pieces out. So the systems and procedures, what they allow you to do is just to automate these tasks and delegate them. One of the problems I see in most businesses, especially when you're a solopreneur starting off, you don't want to give away power doing anything else. You want to do everything yourself because you don't feel like anybody can do the job as well as you. And I found that not to be true. I mean, there's definitely people who can do a lot of the jobs as well as me, and sometimes maybe even better. But the thing is, in order to do that, in order to bring somebody in to do a job, you have to build systems. You have to build systems in order to put those people in place and allow you to automate those processes. And I've heard people talk about delegation, but I've never really heard people talk about delegation when it comes to system. Yeah, you can't just delegate a task and think that somebody's going to know what to do. And I've actually practically seen this when working with businesses. I've tried to do it without system, delegate a task and tell somebody what they should do. And they come right back and they don't know what to do. But every time I put a system in place, a procedure, a policy, I do the thinking beforehand about this is what's going to happen. This is the step-by-step process for a simple procedure. And I put a bunch of those procedures together, businesses start working like well-oiled machines. So when I looked at system, learning system, and this is something I learned in the latter half of the year, and it was crazy to me that I could go so long and even actually produce results without having this systems in place. And that's one of the biggest things that I learned as far as just the business and building, the practical business building was system. And I think you need to have system in everything you do, especially if you want to scale your business. And especially if you want to put your business on automation. And especially if you want to grow to a level where you have all these different systems working together in order to make you a very complex business system. Now, the last thing I learned this year, and not the last thing, because of course I said I learned a lot of small lessons, but one of the biggest things, and this is probably the biggest single most concept that I learned at the beginning of the year that changed everything. It led to all the other epiphanies, I guess you could say. And that's massive action. You must take massive amounts of action. Because see, this year, there were a lot of hardships. There were a lot of ups and downs. There were a lot of people who are not here anymore. A lot of people who started the year off and they didn't end the year. There's a lot of stuff that went on this year that really was changing. The dynamic constantly changed this year. And one of the things that allowed me to create a lot of momentum this year was massive amounts of action. And one of the best examples I give, I actually did 100 cold calls in a day one time. And it was one of the crazy, most just emotionally taxing experiences I've ever went through. I never felt that much rejection in my life, just over and over and over again. But the crazy thing about that was I learned so much by taking massive amounts of action. And the lessons that I learned by making all those calls, I don't think I would have learned that lesson if I wouldn't have done it. I don't think I would have had those lessons deeply ingrained in me. I've talked about needing to go through pain before in order to learn lessons, but I think going through that, it just really changed me. It changed the things, the way I perceive things. And I always tell my friends about massive action, how it can change things. Another good example is Will Powell, the nightlife architect. I've talked about this on videos before, but going to a club and just talking to like 50 people in the venue and just hitting people in the DMs, direct messaging, Facebooks, all these different things to get them to come to the venue. It's just massive amounts of action. And when you see somebody who gets into that space, you can see how they can just change the landscape of pretty much any industry. When you think about somebody taking massive action, they start at a low point and then just by persistent action, outworking everybody, they rise up. And the people who are usually at the top, they sometimes get complacent. And that complacency allows people to rise up. And that's what I think massive action showed me, is that really you can change your circumstances so much by taking massive action. I started off this year not really having many prospects, no networks, no connections, no anything. Not even really knowing what I wanted to sell to people. I knew what type of impact I wanted to create, but I didn't really know what type of product I was going to sell. But through massive action, just trying different stuff, not waiting, not hesitating, taking opportunities. I went from just being at home, doing nothing, all the way to the point of taking trips to LA, getting business partnerships with people like Music World, all these types of things just from taking massive amounts of action. I've met a lot of people. I've built a social circle that's very strong. I've built a business network that's getting very strong. Of course, it's going to get better in the years, but massive action really changed everything. I can't stress enough what massive action can do to somebody. And a lot of people look at it like the difference between massive action is if you can work a couple hours and you know you should work more hours, work those hours. Now, of course, I'm not somebody who's saying you shouldn't get sleep or anything like that, but what I'm saying is just instead of letting yourself doze off or you're not really concentrating on work, 8 hours of hard, persistent work will do so much. Like, it'll just obliterate tasks. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like, literally just 2 hours of non-distracted work. What I like to do is sometimes I just put the phones and stuff out of my room and I just work. And what you'll find is that those tasks you think will take 2 or 3 days, sometimes they take literally 30, 40 minutes. And some of the big tasks, you'll find the big tasks that take a long time or they take days to complete. But a lot of the stuff, it doesn't really take that much time. And I think massive action is really the thing that's the difference between a lot of people. Of course, I always say mindset is first. You have to think something first. You have to have a thought about something. You have to have the right mindset, and the mindset is going to lead your actions. However, once you have the right mindset, then it takes massive action to bring it to life. You can't be a visionary. You can't build big businesses or complex businesses without at some point taking massive amounts of action. And I think that's the biggest thing that I realize is that, yeah, you can sit here and you can be talented. You can have great ideas. You can have concepts. You can even have networks, capital. I've seen all these different situations not result in a successful business. I've practically seen this. And the difference was massive action. I've seen people with nothing, absolutely nothing, not even money in their bank account, build up a business by taking massive action. I think that even when you talk to people and you see that passion, somebody who's willing to take massive action, it's intoxicating. People want to be around people who take massive action. I know that when I've taken massive action, or when I talk to people, when I go in and I try to pitch stuff to people, when I have passion, when I'm taking massive amount of action, when I'm saying, no matter what, I'm going to do this, I really see that they kind of light up. It's the things that they talk about that seemed almost magical or esoteric, I guess you could say, but it really is a game changer. Massive action for me has been one of the things that really pushed me over the boundary and really got my business going. It's really starting to create that momentum that you want to see in your business. Now, of course, following this journey, and I like to document my journey, you'll see me go even further. But one of the biggest things and one of the keys will always be massive action. It's a cornerstone. Consistent, massive action. And I think out of all the lessons Of course, ego was a big one, and that was a big one as far as my personal growth and my personal change. But massive action is the thing that really got me outside my comfort zone and started me to building a business the way it should be. Even doing videos, YouTube videos, making 25 videos this year. All that came as a result of getting out of my comfort zone. Getting to points where I could film around lots of people. That was all getting out of my comfort zone. I remember one of my videos, I was talking and the kids were behind me in the background. They were heckling me. It was all kind of crazy stuff going on, but I still had to get over that. I had to learn how to get out of my comfort zone. And it came by just deciding, really, to take massive action every time. I know the right choice, I know the wrong choice, and I always try to make the right choice. And I feel like deep down inside, you know when you're making the wrong choice. Be honest, you know when you're making the wrong choice. So just make the right choice. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Now, I want to say this, and then I guess this is a personal note, going into 2016 with these 3 things I've learned, is that what I found that a lot of times entrepreneurship is not a process of mastering the world out there. And a lot of times you think it's mastering the world out there, mastering other people. But I think the crazy thing is it's really getting yourself to do the things that you need to do. A lot of people, when they come into business, they think that I have to master skills of the trade. I have to be talented. I have to have some type of connections. I have to have some type of network. And I think one of the things that I've noticed in business is that you can create momentum really without having any of these things. And part of it is just learning to master yourself. Even think about something like a video. I remember when I first started videos, I didn't even want to talk about certain words because I didn't feel like I was worthy of talking about it. And of course, eventually somebody might look and say, you know, you're not somebody who should talk about that. But I can't let that define me. I have to kind of do things for myself. And I can't be focused on my ego. So learning how to master myself, learning how to make myself get up every day and take action, that was a master of myself, but that led to momentum. Learning how to let go of my ego and listen to others' opinions and work with others, that was mastering myself, but it created a lot of momentum. Learning to put systems in place, being consistent with these systems and allowing the systems to build for me, that was mastering myself. Being consistent, that was mastering myself. And the more I began to master myself, the more momentum I was able to create. And I think that's one of the big keys and big distinctions that a lot of people don't talk about. It's the mastery of yourself. Even working with other people, learn how to work with other people. A lot of it's more about you, how you feel about yourself. When you talk about stuff without passion, it's because you don't feel like you're worthy of talking about it, or you should be talking about it, or you're capable of talking about it. But all these type of things limit you when it comes to business. And one of the things that I found is you have to get over it. You have to get this shit out your head that you're not worth talking about, or whatever you're creating is not going to be able to create it, or because somebody else hasn't done it before that it can't be done. It's better to go and try to accomplish something that's great than to live life thinking like living by other people's expectations, their boundaries, and their limitations. And just getting out there. Who cares if people criticize you? Who cares if people don't like it? Because the people who like it, they'll resonate with it more. And I think that's what we have to think about. Creating that impact, letting go of that ego. Let go of the ego. Put some systems in place. And then also massive action. Take massive amounts of action. And the thing you'll find is that when you do these simple things, you'll start to see momentum created in your own life. Now, of course, there's a lot more lessons that there are to learn and a lot more mindsets that we have to ingest in order to become successful. But I just wanted to talk about the 3 that I found most useful to me in 2015. And going into 2016, I have a lot of stuff planned. A lot of changes you'll see to the channel, a lot more ways that I want to give content to people and help people get on that visionary path, because I've seen through study and research how I can see a pathway to it. And I just want to show other people that pathway. And you'll definitely see, I'll document it just like I've documented things in the past of that journey. But I want to bring out more creative content, more things in 2016 that are going to really, really be powerful and really going to be able to help people understand how to develop their business in a visionary way. So I appreciate everybody who's subscribed so far, everybody who's watched my videos, everybody who's been a part of this journey so far. I know this has been a long video, and if you've made it to the end, well, thank you for watching so far. And look out for everything that's going on in 2016. I have a lot of good products coming out. I have a lot of big things coming out in 2016. And I hope you'll take this journey with me to become a visionary, to get to that visionary level. Travel with me the entire way. Watch my journey. Keep checking my progress. Watch, I'll be bringing people on that are entrepreneurs who are also on that journey. And you'll see the practical steps as I apply them and grow myself. So as usual, like and subscribe for more. And let's get ready for 2016.